Receiving a card is the ultimate sin against the football gods, and I believe that that sin should come with the harshest punishments imaginable. Okay, maybe not the harshest, because that still leaves violence on the table, but what if the punishment was a season-long ban for even the most minor of infractions? So you're probably thinking, Matt, didn't you make a video kind of like this on FM23? And the answer is yes, I did. However, while we were digging through some stuff in the editor, looking at things for other projects, we noticed a box that either wasn't there last year, or we just somehow completely glossed over it, and it changes a lot of things. And it's this little box in the editor data down here called Season-Long Competition Ban Info, and you can sort of see where this is going. But to clarify, essentially what this box does is it allows you to set a threshold which, when reached, causes a season-long ban for both yellow cards and red cards, and, well, we've got them both set as 1. Now, if you recall from the bookings video I did last year, I was manually going into every single match and releasing players after they got a yellow card. This one automates essentially the same process, but it causes far more chaos, particularly as when releasing players through the bookings, it actually didn't seem to disrupt things in the league too much at all. This very much does. Since the players are only suspended at their clubs, the clubs are not rushing out to sign replacements for them, as they know that they still have them on the wage bill, especially as we decided to turn all of the card happiness on all the referees in England up to the max, and then switch this system on through the entirety of the English league system. I've also now got the Premier League's detail level set to all competitive matches, whereas I believe last time we had it set to none, because that's the default when you're not actually managing in the league, and I believe that might have also been part of the reason why the results were not quite as crazy as we would have expected. This very much fixes that, because if you don't have this set to high detail, the game is essentially filling in a lot of blanks when it comes to the fixtures. In this case, it's going to be simulating every game as if it was a proper match that you were playing, essentially, and that's where the real fun begins. So in theory, this should now truly become a survival of the cleanest team, particularly with the new harsher refs. It's that time in the video where I say that in the analytics I've noticed that, I don't know, one of you isn't subscribed. So, Derek, go on, you know you want to. And if you haven't already, be like Derek, unless Derek hasn't subscribed, in which case don't be like Derek. So this is going to be an absolute circus, so grab your popcorn and meet me in my giant tent full of elephants. I haven't been at the circus in a while, don't know if you can tell. I will of course link the editor data that we're using for this in the description so that you can download it and play around with it yourself, because it's just kind of fun, isn't it? So the first part of our plan is we're going to run through a season in the Premier League week by week so we can see the chaos slowly but surely begin to unfold over the course of a season. But the beauty of this all being automated this time around, it means that 1, it's a lot quicker, and 2, it means that we can simulate further into the future, like quite a lot further into the future, to see how this pans out over a much longer period of time and just see how much stupidity can occur. My guess is a lot. And if you're a regular viewer, I suspect that's kind of what you're used to. Now, if I had to predict what's going to happen in the early stages, it's going to be not that much different. But once those cards start happening, I will pretty much guarantee you is that we are going to see multiple teams score over 100 goals this season. And I would say at least 1 or 2 concede over 100 goals. And that's where the fun begins. All we did now is Erling Haaland to get a booking in his first game of the season and then just ruin City's chances at a title. Let's get started, shall we? And see what happens over the first couple of match days of the season. Because those scorelines are just going to ramp up and up and up. And I'll obviously show you how it looks in practice with the squads once the cards start happening. And you can see here that Wissa may have scored twice for Brentford, but he did get booked in this game, which means if we now go to his profile, you'll see that he's suspended for next match and all the ones after that. But that's just how we know that the system works. And believe me, once we get a few months into the season, the squads are going to look very, very different indeed, as they're just going to be full of players with little red icons on them. So that 4-0 win for Villa completes the first match day of the Premier League. Everyone's played a single game so far. You can see that Alexander Isak's got 3 goals in there. But if we just have a look in the detail now, you'll see that Everton already have 5 yellow cards, and there's a red card for Man United in there too, from just one game. One game. That's 5 players they've lost in a single match. So if we now go into Everton's squad, you'll be able to see that, well, I mean... Garner, Branthwaite, Danjuma, Gay, all gone. There's probably another guy, maybe from their reserves or something, that's also gone. So we're going to go through the rest of August now and then catch up where things are kind of going, unless there's some absurd results, but those usually come a bit later. And the other good thing about this too is it seems to not only affect the teams at the bottom, of course, but it also means that a clean team who are just kind of a mid-table average side genuinely, I believe, have a chance at Champions League, if not even winning the title, if they just keep themselves clean. So the usual suspects are clustering towards the top of the league, but Everton are still up there with 6. Newcastle also in there. Arsenal will probably suffer from that. Cleanest team actually at the moment is Fulham with none, not a single booking, which might be enough to keep us up this year. Liverpool also keeping things quite clean so far, so maybe they are going to turn up for the books. It's more the likes of Arsenal and Newcastle that have surprised me so far. It's now the 2nd of October, and you can see that the league towards the top looks fairly what you would expect, with City being miles away at the very top of the league and Erling Haaland already scoring 9 goals. Hasn't got a yellow card yet, though. Give it time. Brighton, though, in 2nd is pretty surprising. It's the fact that Fulham, who, of course, we predicted they would do quite well just because they'd started so strongly in terms of the number of yellow cards, i.e. none, sitting in 5th place with a game in hand that, should they win that, bet, which is against Liverpool, would see them climb all the way up to second in the Premier League just because they're keeping it clean. And you can see that Palace and Everton are doing surprisingly well with their 15. City, though, have 14 already. And that's quite a difference to Fulham, who have 4. That means City have already lost 14 players from their squad over the first 7 matches of the season. They may have started strongly, but I suspect they will be reeled back in if they keep incurring cards at a rate similar to that. That's the current situation of players that are currently missing from Crystal Palace at the moment. That's most of their first team squad. And what's going to slowly happen over the course of the season is, generally speaking, more players are going to be suspended from the defensive parts of teams than up front, which means the defenses are going to get worse, the attacks are going to get better, and this time with the higher detail level, we should really start to see that pan out in the number of goals being scored. I would not be surprised if at multiple times this season we see potentially Premier League record earth-shattering scorelines. I want to see a Premier League record broken. I think double digits is on the cards for someone this season, should the right circumstances converge. With October out of the way, things, as you can see, have changed. City have started to drop off a little bit. Brighton, on the other hand, now on to 8 wins out of 10 and a plus 6 goal difference isn't even that much, but it's the points. They've got a huge amount of points so far and actually lead the title race by 3 points already. Down at the bottom, Luton really struggling along with West Ham. Palace, despite the sheer amount of yellow cards they've got and players they've lost, actually managed to get a win and pull themselves up onto 12 points. Now, it might again still change. Also, Haaland with 13 goals. I could see 40 plus from him this season if he doesn't get a booking. In fact, Palace have kept things a bit cleaner over that period. It's Everton that are up to 23 yellow cards over the first half of the season. It's not quite 100 yellow cards potential, but it's getting there. City have cleaned things up a little bit too. Down at the bottom, Fulham still only have 6 yellow cards this season. And, well, I mean, Burnley only 8. And if it does continue in that sort of pattern, I could see the likes of Burnley and Bournemouth especially starting to pull themselves further and further up the table. I mean, they probably would have been sort of favourites for the relegation places, but I don't think they're going to get anywhere near those spots if they carry on at that sort of rate, just because they'll have so many players left when the other teams don't. Luton finally get their first win of the season, courtesy of Carlton Morris, beating an Everton side who probably didn't have any players to field, as Fulham go back into 6th spot with that result against West Ham, another of the strugglers. At the end of November, things have kind of, well, got extremely tight at the top, with 4 points separating 1st and 6th right now, with Fulham still in the battle with that extra game in hand that they have, albeit against Liverpool during that period. Now, Haaland's not scored for City for a little while. I wonder. Oh, no! There he goes. He's gone. Haaland got a booking, I think. Yep, he did. In a Premier League game, he got that booking, which means City have lost their main striker. That could be what cost them the title, I suspect. Obviously, they've got other good players, but losing Erling Haaland is a huge miss. Despite having 30 yellow cards, also Forest with 30, Chelsea with 24 is pretty bad as well. Newcastle with 29. I think so far, the story has been Newcastle with that 29 yellow cards, 18th in the Premier League. They've already sacked Eddie Howe. But with a change of manager could potentially mean a change of tactics, which might mean less yellow cards. Now, down towards the bottom, again, Fulham still only have 9 yellows. To give you an idea, this is the sort of lineup that Everton are running currently in the Premier League. It's that backline with Finney, Astley, Moonen and Van Shaw. Can't be doing them any favours. Not quite dropping into the grayed out players yet, but it won't be long before they do if they carry on at this particular kind of rate. Seems things are already hitting Manchester City quite fast as they've lost to Brentford there. Fulham with another big win, and Bournemouth absolutely pummeling Wolves, and that makes sense. What a day of football this one was. Manchester United 8, Nottingham Forest 0. They got a red card at the end, just a really ice on the cake one there. Not quite a Premier League record, but pretty close. Wolves also hammer Everton 7-2 in another fixture. Luton lose to Brighton and Fulham lose to Chelsea, but they're still right amongst that with that game in hand. Newcastle do pick up a win, though, as Bournemouth also starting to fall up the table, I suppose. But this is what I'm talking about. And Man United have now gone, whoa, okay. United go from an 8-0 at the weekend and then go and hump Chelsea 7-0 at Stamford Bridge. Okay, Manchester United looking like an early favourite for the league at the moment if things carry on. And then follow it up with a 4-1, albeit that's a bit disappointing result against Everton there as Newcastle hit for 5 there. Burnley beat Manchester City, who are absolutely floundering. A guy called Alpha Ruprecht scored their goal. Christmas football's popping off. Man United put another 5 goals past an opponent, this time Liverpool. Their goal difference is going to be insane at the end of the month. Oh, good lord. What did I tell you? They're the ones that have taken up Manchester United 10. Of course, it's Tottenham. Tottenham 0. And this is kind of what I mean. Everton lose again in there as well. Manchester City fail to win again. Liverpool struggling to buy a result in there too, but Fulham with another win. Okay. I don't know if there's any more games between now and the end of New Year, but I'll just check. Oh yeah, there's another full round of fixtures, including the Manchester Derby. Interestingly, only a 1-1 draw there as Luton grab yet another victory and Newcastle take a pummeling once more as Fulham actually surprisingly lose to Wolves. Right, check the league table though. Yeah, Manchester United have a plus 50 goal difference. after 20 matches. Basically, halfway through the season, Man United with the plus 50. I mean, not really surprising given some of the results they've had, but look at that. They're now 11 points above Man City from where City were, and that's what losing Haaland will do for you at that point. Brighton back up into the second spot in there as well. Spurs, despite that pummeling, still actually sitting 5th in the league. Bournemouth and Fulham right on the cusp of those European spots now, and presumably City will just get dragged back and back and back. Everton and Newcastle now into the relegation zone as Luton move above it. It's actually Forest who are doing the most poorly. The goal difference of minus 37 has kind of gone under the radar a little bit. It feels like they're just losing lots of 3s and 4s, and obviously the 8 to United. Now on Team Detailed, Forest, yeah, I mean, there's no surprises there. 48 yellow cards, Everton with 47 in there as well. Luton sort of still mid-table on that side of things. Chelsea doing surprisingly well considering the 33, but it's really the teams with the 40 plus that you want to watch out for. Fulham still only 13 yellows. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if, as the season goes on, Fulham just get better and better and better. City, actually, only 26, which is still a lot more than the lower teams there, but it's not that bad. They only have 2 worse than Manchester United. But yet, United are flying and City are, well, not flying. Thought we'd have a look at the closer breakdown here, more detailed. Man United have already scored 68 times in the first half of the season. 100 goals. They only need another 32 in the next 18 matches. They're probably going to get that, aren't they? Unless something goes horribly wrong. Bournemouth have also won 5 in a row, which has kind of gone under the radar too. Forest actually only conceded 51, which is still a lot, but not compared to some of their compatriots. It's about the same. It's the 14 score that's really let them down. And the same with Crystal Palace, only 13 goals scored. How have they managed that when no one has a defence? Everton have, I mean, look, this is what I mean. Everton are having to fill the squad with greyed out players at this point because they just have so few people in their squad, and it's only going to get worse for them over the course of the rest of the season. They still got Jordan Pickford. They still have Dele Alli, who's listed. Lads, what are you doing? I shouldn't laugh because obviously dude went through a bad time here, but it's the fact that Everton have decided that we have no real players. We have basically no players in our squad. They're playing people that I can't even click on. Yet they're like, no, I think we should definitely get rid of Dele Alli, one of the few players that's still at the club. Fulham can actually still field a full 11 and a bench. Newcastle are in a similar situation, and they've lost a few more players there, and they're heading to the Everton land. Forest, despite all the cards that they've got, they've actually done an okay job at not having too many. That might be why, although they're still doing really poorly. They at least have players. This is what I mean about Forest. They just lose a little bit. They just lose a lot. Everton and Newcastle continue to lose heavily. Manchester United continue winning. Chelsea grab a good win over Brighton, though, which is just going to help Manchester United. Fulham have just clapped Arsenal 4-0 with a hat-trick from Rodrigo Muniz as Everton lose again. Right, finally, Forest have actually started losing by the amounts that you'd expect them to. It's Burnley 8. I'd 8 to be a Forest fan right now. An 8-2 away victory for Burnley. They're not even that good in the grand scheme of things in this season. But with all that in mind, they are still 8 points clear at the top with a huge goal difference, and Rashford's still banging goals. And I think Martial might have been suspended by now, but that gap is going to be hard for anyone to close back if they're not close enough. Quite simply. Fulham right in there as well. Brighton have just sort of floundered a little bit. That goal difference is clearly holding them back slightly. Everton into the relegations, we knew that anyway. Them, Newcastle and Forest are just hemorrhaging now. Luton, they're doing okay. They just don't have the squad quality, but they're just picking up little points here and there that it might well just be enough for them to stay up at this point. Bournemouth still only on 37 points. I actually thought they were doing better than that. It's actually Fulham now that are the ones that are really firing up towards the top. Only 2 points off the Champions League spots. Definitely doable, but not so much for Forest or any really of those 4 sides towards the top there. Forest and Everton are in a league of their own in terms of bad discipline, but Palace and Newcastle are appalling as well. Luton are actually starting to creep up on this too, which might end up getting them sucked back into things. City still only 31. Fulham still with only 16 yellows. Fulham and Bournemouth, I'm telling you, come the end of the season, European spots surely for both of them if they carry on at this rate. Newcastle have actually just picked up a win away at Brighton. Don't know where that's come from, but they've done it as Man United win again. And it's gone completely under the radar, I realise, but Brentford now up into second with that win over Chelsea as Everton once again. And Dele Alli has now been sent off. See, maybe they should have sold him after all. Oh, ouch. There's some results going around here. My God. 6-3 to Liverpool there. Chelsea, actually, with only a 3-2 over Everton. United beat Fulham, but also Brentford with a 7-0 win over Nottingham Forest. Brentford are surely maybe one of the title contenders now if United slip up at some point. I can't believe I didn't notice them going through there. It's just my Fulham hat. It's just ignoring Brentford, which is what a day of goals in general here. Just the classic 54 goals scored in a single match day. I hope nobody had BTTS hackers on though, because they still wouldn't have come in. Brighton love scoring loads, but also conceding loads. That was a 6-3 to Liverpool defeat, and now an 8-3 to Burnley, who scored their second 8-goal haul of the season. They could be an underrated, like, top-scoring side this year. It's going well for Man United still, though, as they put 5 more past Luton, with 4 more from Marcus Rashford, who's surely got to be top scorer this season at this rate. But Newcastle, with another win, this time away at Everton, actually pulls them out the drop zone. Despite Bournemouth actually having a decent amount of squad, Brentford are clapping people at the moment. I mean, the gap to United is still huge, but if anyone could catch it, Brentford are looking likely. As a result like that, another 5 goals for Brentford, as Ivan Toney, now back from his actual suspension, is back in the game again for a bit. Everton survive, sort of, against United with only a 3-0 defeat. Fulham win it again. That's getting quite tasty. There's Forest win a game! Incredibly. Away at Luton, as Chelsea put 7 past Newcastle, there's still some quite good players. I mean, they've still got Chukwuemeka and Nkunku, Mudryk. That's a lot of players. And that leaves the league looking like this. So the gap back to Brentford is now 9 points. They've got 10 games to catch that up against United. I don't know if they're going to be able to manage that, really. Fulham in 5th now with 51, looking pretty decent. City have pulled their way back into it, though. It's Arsenal that have really dropped off, down in, what, that 11th spot, despite the goal difference they've got. They really have fallen off. Brighton now with a negative 10 goal difference. They've obviously had a lot of yellow cards in the second half of the year. Newcastle, though, surprising, up to 23 points and actually outside of the drop zone. Marcus Rashford with 25 goals, and also Matthias Jensen with 14 assists for Brentford, too. Just looking at goals scored, United have 91, but Brentford with 71 in there too, head and shoulders above everybody else, and also one of the best defences in the league too. Spurs have conceded 50 goals this season, but scored 67. Down at the bottom, yeah, Forest 79 goals conceded and Everton 73. They are by far the worst 2 teams in the league as things stand. Palace have at least started to score some more goals. And, well, it gets worse, because Everton are up to 71 yellow cards this season, so that's probably why they've slunk back down again. Newcastle have cleaned their act up. That's why they've got better. They're down on 51 now. And Brighton have moved right back into that battle themselves, getting 50, and that's obviously what's caused their decline down there. Luton have got worse now. Arsenal also slumped into mid-table. Burnley have got quite bad too. Fulham's still the best though, with 20, but also Brentford down on 21, and they've made the most of the squad that they've got, clearly. They just have a better squad than Fulham, and as a result, they're getting the results. Brentford haven't conceded a goal in 7 matches in the Premier League now. That's how good they've been, and they are just scoring like crazy. Oh, it's happened again! That is the second time this season that Nottingham Forest have lost 8-0 to Manchester United. Brentford record their 8th consecutive win without conceding a goal, as Newcastle win 5-0 away from home. They really have sorted themselves out discipline-wise, and I think they're going to be fine now. 6-5 to Liverpool over Arsenal as well. What a game! If you're wondering how Everton is... This is the Everton team. They have Jordan Pickford and some grayed out guys, and then a guy called Chermiti up front, and then that's it. Everyone else is just a grayed out, randomly generated player, and these guys are not going to be good. Then the rest of the bench is just goalkeepers. Joao Virginia, Graham, Barrett, Barnsley, Krellin, all keepers. I just love the fact that they've got 3 players that can actually play striker, and they're just not playing them in the system. Forest do at least have a couple of players. They've got Matt Turner, Jacob Greaves, Farouk Smith up front, but actually their situation's even worse, because they can't even field a full bench, even with grayed out players in there. Brentford do actually concede a goal this time through Andreas Pereira, who, yeah, doesn't score often, as you can tell, and doesn't get booked often apparently either, but they do keep winning. That's now, what, 9 in a row for them? Something tells me United are going to win this title. That's another win, this time against Chelsea. It's going to push Brentford even further clear in second of Chelsea, but I don't see them catching Manchester United at this rate. They've still got Marcus Rashford, as you can see, plus 80 goal difference, 76 points. They're 9 clear with 7 matches to play. Brentford in second, 4 points above Chelsea, but that goal difference is humongous. They've won, I think, 10 in a row now. They're flying. Fulham have slipped off the pace a little bit now, and City have allowed themselves to get back in there. So really, it's only Brentford that are actually showing any real fight to get into the title race that you wouldn't expect. Arsenal now down in mid-table, still down in 10th. Do have a new manager. It's Roberto De Zerbi, who they just nicked from Brighton, who could well be in free fall, but they can't fall that far, truthfully. Newcastle up to 32 points now. They really have sorted themselves out under a new manager, stopped getting so many cards, and it's absolutely saved their season. Unfortunately, though, Luton Town are really... It's just those bottom 5 now, as it's 74 apiece now for Everton and Forest. Palace catching up. Brighton now up into 4th spot, and you can see Newcastle slips all the way down to 8th on this list. Chelsea are the biggest surprise for me. How in God's name are they... Is it just because Chelsea have such a deep squad, because they've signed 1,000 players, that they can just keep bringing people through and still get 55 yellow cards? Maybe this is what they were planning for. The Bowley plan in action. Man United now have reached 100 goals. I don't know if anyone else is going to do it. Brentford probably will, I suspect. 7 games to get 20. They'd have to be getting 3 a game, and they kind of already are. The others maybe not. Man United, though, could be looking at like 130 or something along those lines. Forest will definitely concede 100, and I feel like Everton will as well. But it might not be as... Well, it's still mad, obviously, but maybe not quite as mad as I'd anticipated in many places. And a 1-1 draw between Brentford and United with a red card in the 94th minute and a late Toney equaliser. If Brentford had won that, there might have been a chance, but I think that chance has firmly evaporated, as Palace now win 4-1 away from home against Burnley, and they're suddenly seeming safe too. They couldn't even do that. As Forest beat Liverpool out of nowhere. Where did that come from? Fulham with another big win. Man United slap another 8 goals, this time past West Ham. Brentford may well have managed to score 5, and Toney's surely got to be coming into the race for top scorer now, but it ain't going to be enough. They're just going to keep pace with United, having not lost in about 15 now, and I think they've won 14 of them. And the race for 5th place is utterly wild, basically. Manchester City have 59, all the way down to Arsenal in 10th, who have 55, but there's also 4 teams tied on 58 or 59 points in there as well. Anyone's game. United hump Newcastle 6-0. Brentford with another 4-0 win and another 3 goals for Ivan Toney, but it's not going to make any difference at this point, I don't think. Burnley boosts the goal difference slightly as Fulham win again. Forest get a point. But I do just want to highlight Brentford again. They have won every game bar one since December when they won that game against Newcastle. Just the draw against Manchester United. If they just weren't so bad in this little spell here, they'd have been right in the title race. Oh, God. Brentford win again, but Man United with a 7-0 hammering, 3 more for Marcus Rashford. That's the title for them officially now, and that's a big bad result there for Sheffield United. Not that it matters because Luton lost to Fulham as well. But Everton and Forest, how? They still couldn't score against each other. Absolutely unhinged result in the mid-table here between Liverpool and West Ham, as Liverpool hit West Ham for 10 goals. Like, how does that happen? At this point, usually when I was doing these tests, a lot of the big results came in the middle of the season before teams had got a chance to get crap across the board, where they just had good players up front and not at the back. Liverpool have just saved this one for the end of the year. I told you this would be more chaotic than last time. United put another 7 goals past the team. Brentford with another 4 goals. Tony gets another 2 in there. That's crazy. Newcastle with a 5-0 win as well. Everton get humped. Luton lose again. I think they're pretty much gone. As with 1 game to go, this is how it sits. Yeah, the bottom 3 with that point for Sheffield United are all confirmed. It's a question of where they finish at this stage. United have actually still only 9 points clear. And Chelsea have held on to the coattails of Brentford quite well, considering it feels like Brentford are winning every week. So are Chelsea, apparently, just not quite as emphatically. Fulham can, well, not really. They can't really still get 4th spot. Spurs have bottled it, though, as they were comfortably clear in 4th place for a bit, and now they're not. But yeah, that goal difference for City is clearly going to see them over the line there. Unless something... And then again, you can't really rely on goal difference to help you in this season. Well, there might not be 50 in there, but there's quite a lot. As Brentford don't win. After all that, they don't win on the final day. They still score 4 goals, but they do not win. It wasn't even 50 goals. It was like 43. I really feel like Fulham and Newcastle and Brighton and Everton, how they got another red card, have let us down massively there. So that leaves the title race, or the league, looking like this in the end. Man United win it by 11 points in the end. Brentford do get second. A 109 goal difference is utterly mental. I guess we finally created a universe where Manchester United could be back to the top. That's mad. Fulham end up coming 6th in the end as that result on the final day of the season does cost them there. Liverpool do sneak into 7th spot ahead of Bournemouth. Arsenal pull themselves back up a little bit. Newcastle kind of started to flounder again after a while. Burnley, what was with Burnley this season? They actually had a positive goal difference, but just could not seem to win matches. But when they did, it was by massive margins. So in the end, Brentford do get 104 goals this season. Manchester United scored 146 times. 146? How are they so much better than everybody else? Big shout out as well to Chelsea nearly getting there, and Tottenham nearly getting close to 100 goals themselves. Fulham with only 74, but they kept it tight at the other end. Forest with 117 conceded is pretty bad. Everton did okay. Sheffield United underrated bad there with 93 goals conceded, but they did stay up in the end. Nottingham Forest ended with 97 yellow cards. It's a good amount. Solid. 4 reds in there too. Palace got 7 reds, which is not going to have helped them either to go with their 83 yellows. Brighton really did shit the bed somehow later on there. I don't know how Chelsea and Tottenham did as well as they did getting that many yellow cards. It must just be squad depth on the Chelsea side of things. Spurs, I don't know how. Might be why they fell off towards the end a little bit there. Fulham do actually get the best result in the end with 27, but Bournemouth in there as well. Brentford thoroughly deserved their spot with 32 yellow cards. Not bad when you consider it. Like when you look at the past positions, Brentford, this is the thing. Brentford were in 10th place at the halfway stage of the season, and then they just started winning repeatedly, forever. United kind of just did that, but did it a bit earlier. It's City as well. That middle of the table slump where they just started getting all those yellow cards, that's cost them dearly. Bournemouth as well. This is one of the things you'll see. Because they had such a weak squad to start with, as the season progressed and things evened up a little bit and they kept themselves clean, their rise was kind of meteoric until they kind of hit a ceiling. Brighton, again, were right in the title race. They're actually top of the league after, what's that, 11, 10 matches? Then they fell down and got themselves all the way back into 3rd spot. No, that's 2nd. After 21 matches, and then just hemorrhaged points after that. Newcastle, well, I mean, they started very strongly and fell all the way down to 19th place after 23 games, and then finally managed to save themselves. Villa were underrated bad in this, actually. I didn't even realise how they were just sort of around and then just slowly drifted off. Everton just got worse and worse as the season went on, and Forest just went, pew, bottom, stayed there, pretty much. Anyway, so that is how it works and is chaos over a single season. But what if we were to now sim into the future with this same system in place over, well, the entire English league system, with them all turned on, to see what absolute madness can happen over a much longer period of time. So, to the future with myself, obviously, new day for me, so we're wearing different clothes. Back in a sec, friends. So we are back. It is a few days later, and I think I might actually be wearing the same clothes, such as my slavishness to continuity. I might not be now, I just literally can't remember. The point being is we're now very far into the future. In fact, we're in 2057. Now, I actually originally had a sim already set up that was 10 years into the future, but I thought, you know what? I've got a bit of time. This will be much more fun if we go deep deep future diving. Now, full disclosure, this is actually a different save file because I already had this sim before we recorded before, hence why the editor is turned on in this one. But so that just means the stuff that happened in the season we just did technically didn't happen. But I know for a fact that the season has just finished because it's the 14th of May, and I looked on Wolves' profile to figure that out without actually seeing, other than we know that Wolves are in the Premier League. So I think the first thing we should probably do is just see what the Premier League looks like now, and then we can kind of go back in time and have a look at what's actually happened over the last few seasons. So, leagues in focus, Premier League, okay. Well, Man United apparently just love this system. That seems to be an absolute given. They just love playing in this new system. That's not really the story here. The story here is Maidst own. Look at the, oh my god, the goal difference on Manchester United. Leonardo Senna, who is obviously a regen, but because of my Z-Gen pack, he's got a face there, with just the 55 league goals for Manchester United. But the fact that Maidstone United are 7th in the Premier League, there's a story there, and I want to tell it. Because other than that, genuinely, the rest of the Prem, in terms of the members of it at least, look pretty normal, with the exceptions, you know, Blackburn, Coventry, Leeds, second tier sides at the start of the save, but nevertheless, it's not a huge amount, and also Sunderland. That's not really the it's how Maidstone have done it. That's what I really want to know. 176. Southampton with 156 as well. That's getting wild. Liverpool conceded 143 on their way to relegation with just 8 points this season. And Maidstone as well with 90 goals scored. Now, are they newly promoted? I just don't know. Let's just go back in time to the following season before that. No, Maidstone have been here for a while, it seems. What I have noticed, though, is that Liverpool were newly promoted. Season of them coming bottom there was them being newly promoted, so something's definitely happened there. United scored 171 that season. Absolutely ruthless. Sunderland getting second with only 95 is surprising as well. Big up Middlesbrough, but also big up Arsenal. Conceded 117 times, but didn't get relegated. That's how you do it. Are there any more absolutely wild seasons in there as well? So Bournemouth up there doing well. Oxford United in the... I say in the Premier League. At that point, are you even in the Premier League? Just the one win, probably against Fulham. Nope, Palace, okay. Seems like Liverpool disappeared for quite a while. We do have all the other leagues turned on as well in England, so we can go right down and see if there's any other madness going along. There's just a lot to look through. I imagine you watch these videos because you're like me and you enjoy looking at random stuff like this. City then got a title there. United only... Oh my god. Scored 139 goals, didn't win the league. Notts County, top flight there, which is not bad. Multiple teams again conceding over 100 goals. And also Southampton with 140 scored, but just somehow balls it up. And they lost 11 times. Didn't draw a single match. Maidstone still hanging about. Maybe they got a tycoon or something, or they're just really clean. So actually, this season here is the first season of Maidstone. So this was, what, 6 years ago? And they've gone from where they were, getting promoted, to this. But for whatever reason, it just seems like Manchester United are absolutely goated under this particular system. United barely even lose a game most seasons now. Lost to Forest that year, lost to West Ham that year. They're like one blip away from an invincible season. But then, Southampton. Okay, so things definitely did change a little bit, as United they were still very good. I'll be curious to know if they've actually even finished outside the top 4 under this system. So Liverpool actually did win a title with only 83 points. That's very, very low indeed. Villa also grabbed a title with Norwich coming second. Because in the first season I did this test, Brentford actually won the league in the version that I was testing before, and you could sort of see why I thought that maybe they'd do quite well, but that 28 goals conceded is surprising. That being said, 5 teams scoring over 100 is wild, and Burnley with 143 conceded, bottom of the league by a comfortable margin. Luton this time did stay up. Liverpool had a much worse time of it. Bournemouth won the title the second season and then presumably entered like some period of absolute hegemony because Bournemouth were just extremely clean. Bournemouth coming back again with Liverpool getting 9 points deducted, still coming third. They'd have won the league. They would have won the league were it not for that. Seeing a lot more like administrative points deductions in FM24. I know that the new finance system is kind of harsh, but I'm seeing it a lot. Chelsea survived, I'll say by the skin of their teeth. They were actually 15 points clear despite coming 17th. Back to Bournemouth. Bournemouth were very good. Lincoln City up in the top flight there. Good for Tom. Maybe less so for them. Now I think we're back to where we were. Right, so I think what I want to do is have a look at the Premier League records for a minute, and then we can have a look at the Maidstone Rise and the other leagues as well. Most times won. Oh, that makes sense. Most points in a season was 105, and it wasn't actually Man United, it was Man City. In fact, it was the season I was just highlighting where they won, well, 34 out of 38 games, 161, not the most surprisingly, but 135 goal difference is pretty stacked. Fewest points though, Coventry with 1, and obviously they didn't win any games, they lost 37 matches. Surely that must have been the worst goal difference to go with that, right? 148 negative. That's pretty bad, but I actually don't know if 165 is the worst. It must be, surely. Biggest win. Holy Lord. Manchester United 16. Brentford 0. That'll really get it done. Of course it's United. Also, can we talk about this game here between Manchester City and Bournemouth where they won 10-7? Yeah, it was this game here. So you can see the scorers. Oh, Brentford got a red really early in that game. Noteworthy as well. Man United also won 11-1, 16-0 obviously, 10-0, 11-1 again. A good season, you might say. In fact, their only Premier League defeat that season was just randomly at Loftus Road, because reasons, with a 92nd minute winner. But that 10-7 is even more bizarre, because that just kind of comes out of nowhere. A few good wins for them, and then they come against Bournemouth and win 10-7 at the Eddie Howe Stadium as well. Possibly the most batshit scoreline I've ever seen in a single game. I know 16-0's wild, but imagine scoring 7 goals and still losing by 3. Must admit, on stream yesterday, we actually had a game that we were participating in, finished 7-5 in the league. So there's some high-scoring games in FM at the moment anyway, clearly. United won 23 in a row there. Coventry lost 33 in a row. I mean, they'd have to have done, really. And City also went on a 65-game... Oh, my God! They must have lost, like, a couple of games at the start of the season, and then a couple of games right at the very end of the season, somehow. And then that ended up with them getting that run. Imagine going 65 games without losing, which I think would be the longest, like, unbeaten run in English football history, and not getting an unbeaten season in there. It's also worth noting that they also did 15 matches without conceding a goal. It's weird. United seemingly were the overpowered side from this, but City seem to have most of the records, except for this one here, with Man United scoring 176, and Coventry do have the record with 165. Most overall goals by a player in a season, Erling Haaland. 61 goals for Erling Haaland is kind of crazy, and that does make me wonder about, like, record league. How many goals did Erling Haaland score? 350. I was expecting more, if I'm honest. It's very good, obviously, but I assume, yeah, so first couple of seasons solid, but then he obviously got some early bookings, then he got that 61-goal season, but look, the next 3 seasons, he basically got booked within 5 matches and couldn't score any more goals, then had a really nice finish to things. It's also worth noting that the lowest, sort of, biggest win over this entire period is 9-0, and one of those has at least occurred in every season, along with many others. There's a 14, I mean, it got worse and worse as the save goes on, in fact. 13-2, but that 10-7 is just in a league of its own. A 9-8-9, okay, 9-8 is pretty impressive. What if that sort of stuff is going to apply to the lower divisions too? Right, I think that's enough Premier League stuff, although I do want to have a look at Maidstone United before we continue. I want to check their landmarks to see if they got like a takeover or something. Finances, yes they did. Right, that explains it. Although that wasn't even that long ago. They can't have been that bad before then. They do have a takeover currently. In fact, they've had 2 different tycoons. But surely they can't have all done this in the last 10 years. Do you know they haven't really? Because this is where they were when that sort of stuff started happening. They obviously rocketed up once they got that, but they were already in the Championship when this was happening. So I don't know what's happening. They got 3 promotions in 4 years from the National League. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a look through the leagues as they are this season, and then we'll go through their records to try and highlight individual ridiculousness if we can do. So Championship this season, Hull City West Ham in the final. No one really... Okay. 115 points for Palace is very solid. No plus 100 goal difference, surprisingly. I guess it's slightly more condensed in terms of the field in the Championship. Watford getting relegated with only minus 67. That ain't bad. Things must just be much tighter in these leagues to cause this. I'm sure there's going to be some plus 100 goal differences in here somewhere. And nope. Reading with 110 points, plus 94 goal difference, but... well, they were so much further clear than everybody else. Down at the bottom, like minus 64, Dartford also in League 1, by the way. 45 goals for Robert Schala is pretty decent. League 2 is MK Dons Port Vale, but Rotherham, well, that's not even that bad. This is the thing. It's clearly still working, as you can see from the insane amount of goals being scored, but the teams are just kind of vibing, it seems. I guess there just isn't such a disparity between the teams in these leagues, and as a result, it causes slightly less chaos further down the divisions. Barnet beat Swindon in the National League final, but again, 100 points for Aldershot is fine, but down at the bottom, Charlton are relegated from the National League. That is actually quite a story. Anyone we don't expect to see in here knocking about? Macclesfield are back. Sudbury, Atherton Collieries. Cheltenham. Oh dear. And in National League South, it looks to be a similar story. In fact, that one's even more normal to what you'd expect, other than Torquay with 110 points is pretty amazing. I'll link this save file as well in the description if you want, so you can have a look through this in your own time as well. And if you do find anything outrageous, do let me know in the comments. It might be quite a large file, though. Yeah, most points, 127 is pretty goated. Rotherham also lost 39 games. Still got 17 points. In spite of all that, they still actually managed 17 points. Did concede 120 goals, though. That'll do it. And the most goals in a single season was 176 for Nottingham Forest. Look at, yeah, so the matches are still fairly obscene. For the most part. 9-3, 8-10-2, 7-5, hey. So lots of 9-3s as well. I love that Oxford won 11-0 2 seasons in a row. Or nearly 2 seasons. No, it was 2 seasons in a row. Watford got 123 points in League 1 that season. And we do have the biggest win, though, is actually here, which is Kidderminster beating Bromley 12-0. And we had a delightful 10-5 between Middlesbrough and Bromley. We needed 10-4. For all the good buddies out there. Also, what on earth? MK'd 147 yellow cards and 7 reds. Although, they did actually only go down by a single point, despite getting over 100 and nearly 150 red cards. Joe Brayson with 45 goals for Southend one season. It's not bad, it's solid. I love that the worst discipline records are just like 1 yellow. I mean, he must have got a yellow and then a straight red card in the same game. That's the only way he could have that. I guess, right, if you're going to be suspended for an entire season, you might as well get your money's worth. And yes, some solid results. Another 10-5, 7-3, a 10-0. Not as many like double-digit scorelines, I must say. That seems to be more of a domain of the Premier League. Moving down to League 2, 120. Someone always seems to get around about 120 something points, don't they, really? Oh, an 8-all. Now that's an absolute humdinger. You love to see that. Mansfield hold the record for both the most goals conceded and the most goals scored. Admittedly, 23 years apart, but that's just kind of dope. I'm just a big fan of that 8-all. 8-all draw is very, very good. A few 5-alls in there too, but that's boring compared to an 8-all. The video printer would be going mental. Maidstone have won it a few times. No surprises there. Oh my God. Cheltenham with 175 goals. No one's probably got close to 200, but that's pretty close. There was another 8-all. You'll have to see it. I love that the attendances are actually rising quite a lot. I suppose there would be, really, if you're going to be guaranteed 4 or 5 goals a game. They also had this guy, Jemiah Umulu of Maidstone, got 60 goals in a season. National League North, Gateshead have won it a few times. 126 points for Scunthorpe, though, in there, too. Shout out to Travis Bull with 58 goals. No one's quite beaten the Haaland record. One last chance. Chelsea City, one of my sort of pet clubs over the last few years of FM, I suppose. 120 points, not bad. 9-0, 8-6 again. It's just not the same. What the Oliver Lynch from Slough Town. 72 goals in a single season. Unfortunately, because he was probably didn't go on to do a great deal. That is actually mental. 72 in a season. That's genuine craziness. I'm just going to have a quick gander at some of the European results, but I don't suspect that's going to have made much difference, really. Bet you England have not done much, although Southampton have won it. So there is that. In fact, they've won it twice. Bournemouth have also got a Champions League title. Europa League, any surprises there? Forest have got one. Another one. Benfica. Wolves have got a few, actually. Sunderland have got like, wow, okay, this has just been England domination. It actually feels like the clubs that you'd expect to be challenging for Champions League titles seem to have won more conference leagues than anything else. When you look at the fact that there's Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, Newcastle, Arsenal all winning these. Needless to say, the database file and obviously the save file from this point now will be in the description of the video. If you have enjoyed this video, that would be awesome if you could drop a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. And of course, shout out to the patrons who, without you, this would not be possible. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Hold your gun, capybara, bye-bye.